Hi, I'm Troy Coleman, and I'd like to welcome you to the Global Health Rebellion. We're rebelling against the sick care system because it's designed to keep you sick. And so we are creating a brand new system, a better way, a new way to look at things and look at life and to really break free of the whole system. That's what all this podcast is about. And I'm here to give you all the tools and tricks that I know that I've learned over the last 8 years, and I am getting guests on all the time to share their tips and tricks as well. So I've got Tim Edmonson on today from Get Growing. He's going to share some of his tips and tricks for relationships and how men and how we all fit into society, I suppose, as a whole. Because the men, we've had a bad rap over the last few years, and I can understand it because the women were held down for so long. And then instead of keeping the same sort of system with roles and responsibilities, it just went totally totally the other way. And so the pendulum just went too far to the one side. I suppose I don't want to say left or right because then it gets political. And so yeah, and then as we can see from society now, that all the discipline's gone out of society. The breakups are at the highest levels ever. With divorce and things, and they're just things are just way out of control. So we're trying to bring that back, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So how are you going, Tim?
Hi, Troy. Yeah, going well. Thanks.
And what do you? I know you've got a lot of you've done a lot of things. Like you've done a lot of self help with yourself to make yourself into a better man, and also to help with your relationship with your marriage and things. So yeah, I'd like to you know um, because a lot of men don't realize that there is help for men, and it also isn't just it's not just there's no easy fix to anything. Like people just think I just do this one thing. No, we can't just do one thing. Like it's ongoing. When we change one thing, then everything around that changes. Then we change another thing, then everything around that changes. Then we change another thing. So it keeps changing. Like that's as Tim knows because he's in the plant industry. And so like if you chop one limb off, it just grows out another spot. And then that creates more limbs. So then there's more things to look at. So it's an ongoing thing all the time. So what we need to do is like have constant care for yourself, and take time for yourself as well to realize, try and work out who you are as a person, and then um, go forward from there. So what are your thoughts, Tim?
Well, I like your pruning analogy, and often I think it's one you might have used with Craig or Jeff as well in an earlier podcast. But
Yeah,
there's you often the way to think about pruning is that you think you're cutting stuff off, but you're actually cutting to a point to encourage and allow new growth. And it was probably a bit over 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago now, that I sort of got bounced out of a job in a community that I really loved being part of and felt really important in, and had a strong part of my identity as being sort of a bit of a hero role in that workplace, and a disaster recovery from there was big bushfires in Canberra in '03 and all of that. That workplace all got burnt, sort of 13 hectares of school grounds. And then, sort of ended up with sort of PTSD from that, and then going through a process of feeling entitled and like that workplace owed me something, or sort of thinking about things that not in a healthy way or not a holistic way, sort of all from my point of view. And I think that's pretty easy for. I mean, it's pretty easy for any people to think that, but men have a way of thinking about that. It then becomes easy to keep thinking like that. and not to go, actually, what's truth? How does this affect the whole family? How does this affect everyone around me, not just from my point of view? So I left that workplace and started a company called Get Growing. I'm a horticulturist, and realised that what it was for was for me to grow, was for my personal growth. Like, children had grown up, so it wasn't like a growing, developing family that we were working towards. It was about time for myself, time and space for myself to develop. So definitely some things got pruned off, and a lot of new stuff's growing. And one of those things ended up being, I don't know, it was 7 years ago, something, 2017, something like that, that I met Troy met you at a workshop.
Yeah.
And when we talked sort of a couple of days ago, I was sort of telling him my journey of that workshop, where I'd ended up, setting an intention, and, like you're saying, having time and space for yourself, and to be a bit reflective and look inward. You can't do when you're in a really busy daily life and looking after everyone else and trying to meet customers' requirements and sort of be that busy world that we live in and do things in, and often not doing something and just sitting and reflecting and going through some processes can be really valuable. And so my intention was to connect. It was about connecting with people, and what developed over the next 4 days or so was, I sort of had this sense of like a lotus flower, and then the next day was sort of opening, and then I realised it wasn't opening out, and was in my heart chakra, or from my chest, and lying in bed early in the morning, I could physically actually feel it, and then I realised it wasn't opening outward, it was opening inward, which was pretty amazing. Sort of gives me goosebumps thinking about it now, talking about it. Feels a bit embarrassed talking about it. But the other podcasts I've heard, I've really enjoyed Jeff and Craig, and you talking about your inner worlds a little bit. And I think that's really important for men to be talking about and thinking about and listening to others.
Yeah, it's tough for men, isn't it? Because we don't, and it's right in a way, I think, because we don't want to be like soft marshmallows and then run over by the truck. We need to have a hard skin on the outside and then soft on the inside. That's why I say it. So we need to, because we only have sort of two jobs, and that's sort of protect and provide. So that's what I think men are here for, and then women are here to do all the other things, because they've got the emotional skills, where we just don't have that. Like, we just don't. We try to do the emotional thing, but we don't have it. Like, we just don't. We feel emotion, but not the same level as like the ladies. And so I think a lot of the issues happen is because we're looking at them and thinking, why can't they just fix it? Or why do they have to keep talking about it? Or, where we just want to fix the problem. Like, we just see something, we just go, well, it's an easy solution, let's just fix it. But because we're lineal and they don't, they're radial, they like to talk and move and think and feel, and as being a lady, they're doing a lady thing. And I think this is where all the cross paths have happened, and why a lot of problems exist, I think, in relationships, is because each side, like the man side and the lady side, is expecting the same thing from each person. And like, we just can't, we just can't. We're not even close to being the same, other than the gender. But on an emotional sense, we're not nowhere near the same. Like, we just can't be, because we don't have it. And so for men, this is why it's difficult, because we want to talk like about our emotional thing, but we should really just be in a men environment when we talk about it, because if you if you're in a women environment talking about the way they look at emotions is like, it is so different. Like it's not even close. And this is, and I think a lot of social media has done this problem as well, as because they want men to be in touch with all their feelings, and um, and show their feelings and all this stuff. But I don't know if that's not quite correct. I don't think that it should be like that.
Yeah,
What?
well, a lot of it's in terms of what's appropriate as well. Like you can't be on a work site um, in the same way, in the same openness that you can be in a workshop or with a group of close friends. But the part of what you're talking about is behaviour, like should men show their feelings or have a hard skin? But then there's also the capacity and it's also like a human behaviour to be able to do that. And a lot of the inappropriate, if things are inappropriate, it's where the society is sort of determined. Like a workplace is a certain way, and different workplaces have different sort of vibe, like how hard they are or whether they're more open. And also, you mentioned protect, like our work is to protect. Then part of protect is also care. It's not just like a hard protect with a shield and a sword. It's also having empathy and caring enough for our children, for example, when they're in primary school. If you pick them up from after school or you're walking along the beach with them and having a chat, be able to explain things that they might have found hurtful that happened at school in a way that you're protecting them but caring for them as well.
Yeah, that's a great thing too,
But
to think, that you're
yes,
saying that. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like an interrelating thing, not just the physical world,
yeah.
it's the inner world. Yeah.
But in saying, say, I see what you're saying, and so if we say if you're a father, because we're both fathers, we've both brought children up,
Yeah.
and and like my thoughts as a father is protect at all cost, both on an emotional level and a physical level, like if someone come if someone was coming for my family, mate, they got to watch out. I'll do anything to protect my family. And but like you say, with the emotional side is a tough one. I mean, because I think that's why boys, especially, how they become a mummy's boy, because boys like to have love and affection. Um, but girls already have it within them, where boys don't, because we don't actually carry that. Like we carry it, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting the words right, but
Well, I think what can happen too is boys are growing up. Their their, their father or maybe in our generation more, their fathers aren't around as much, so not as visible in terms of the day to day looking up and sort of idolizing or learning how to do it, learning the behaviours and the values. Fathers aren't around as much, then as a boy grows up and then becomes a teenager, you don't want to find an identity that's based on I'm not like mum, I'm not like my sister, rather than I am going to take on these attributes, like these good attributes of my dad. That's
yeah,
that's another thought in the mix.
yeah, like yeah, and I guess it is a hard thing to try and get the wording out for that is, yeah. So we need to be a role model. That's what you're saying, isn't it,
Yeah, yeah,
for your children?
yeah.
Wait,
And typically men are sort of off at work and not around.
Yeah. But you don't want to be a blubbering mess sitting on the lounge, you know?
No,
That's not. So there is a where
but
mum
you want to be.
where mum can be crying on the lounge a lot, because that's mum, but that's dad can't do that. That's not a father shouldn't do that, you know?
No, but you want to be connected, not cut off.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you like as a new father, like what would you say, what would be your like some of your points that you would do?
Well, after I've just had a few days away with my 34-year-old son, up seeing my parents, and that was a fantastic sort of couple of days away. So that we're still sort of relating and connected, and probably better than ever. But when he was young, like when he was a newborn, um, and and we were new parents, it was very, very difficult for my wife and I to work out what the sort of family rules were, because she had hers and I had mine, and we didn't understand that they needed to blend and work out our own. And in a way, we've only just started doing that to a deeper level now after 30, fucking it up for 34 years.
How long have you been married for?
But that's growing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since 1986.
Oh wow. So you're way ahead of me then. I wasn't married till 92.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty big effort.
Only a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
What technique we've just learned in the last 18 months, and it's taken a few months to practice it and get fluent and trusting with it, is every morning, 40-minute walk. I'd like to go earlier, but it's not at sunrise, but so it works for both of us. And there's a check-in process that I think is really valuable can happen either in a group, like in a workshop or something. And that's pretty simple. There's 3 steps to it. And the only rule is that when someone's talking, well, when you're talking, you talk about yourself. So there's no finger pointing like they did that or you did this or whatever. So it's much more about how I feel and like I did this and I felt the other. Does that make sense? So I'm
Yeah,
talking about
maybe expand a little bit on it.
what I do and what I feel from my point of view. So anyone starts, and it's what sort of doing a bit of a body scan, like what am I feeling like? What thoughts are in my head? What dream did I just have? You might talk for 30 seconds or it might be 5 minutes. During that time, the other person can't talk. It's like your time with the microphone, that's it. And that was incredibly difficult for my wife to get a grip on, because she'd go, what? Like you had to respond to what I was saying. And it got to a point where there was one morning I was going, hang on, like this is my time. Yeah, don't interrupt. This is my sacred time. However long I need, it's mine. There's no talking. And she did it again. And I said, I don't know, you might have to edit this out. I said, shut up. And I've never talked to anyone like that before. And she did it a third time. I went, shut the fuck up or I'm gone. This is it. This is a line in the sand. And that really changed. Like that, our dynamic between us then really changed.
Yeah, wow.
So I felt like I had more authority and confidence in being able to say, no, I'm talking about myself. And it's not a conversation. It's not a to and fro. It's just me. And it's my point of view. And that's sort of what it is. It's not up for discussion or review or anything. This is my truth now here. So I do that. Then she has her turn, and then it comes back to the first person, and it's what stood out for me. So it could be something I said or something she said. So it's what stood out for me, and then what it says about me. So it might be like, Troy, when you talked about being a father earlier on, you said blah, 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 blah. And rather than then going, and you should, or like turning into a conversation like that, it's then that reminded me when I did that with my kids, then I felt like I'd done the wrong thing, or so it becomes a reflective process, the second stage. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah. I
Yep.
don't know.
And then,
It sounds like it could go bad either.
well, it's
It
well,
could
it's
it
it's
could go bad.
agreeing on how you're going to do it. We
Yeah.
did an online course on it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It was called a check-in wave. It was a process from Deep Democracy was the group that did it, started it up. And then the third step is, so the first step is you just scan how you, like check in how you're feeling. No comment or interruption. Each person has a turn. The second one is what stood out to me and what that says about me. And that's really important that there's a reflection inwards. Like, why did it stand out to me? And it could be a word or a phrase or an idea, or the fact that someone got upset, the other person got upset, or it could be anything that stood out. And then the third part, and each one person has a turn, then the third part is what are the themes and the stuff that's just under the surface, like what's almost subconscious, what's the big stuff we're talking about that we're not quite saying. And that's often really, really valuable.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And an example is yesterday we were talking about when you start work, because we've both got trauma sort of backgrounds in our childhood. So now when we start potentially working and collaborating with someone, how do you know that point where you have to trust and take a step that they're going to be trustworthy, or that it's going to, do you not go there? Do you just keep working by yourself so that you're sure that you won't get hurt? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that we were talking about that yesterday, and then like how when you do trust someone and work, then there's two parts got to come together. It's almost like cogs in a gearbox, and there's potential. Like there's a time when you come together and then working really closely, and then go apart. And in there's room for damage and error. So there's, I'm not sure that's quite making sense.
Yeah, it's making sense. But in my mind, I'm just thinking that could go south really quick.
Well, we had to do a little 6 1 hour program, 6 week of 1 hours a week practice, and then sort of have the thing written down like a little card.
Yeah.
And we're both really committed to it. It's made a huge difference because we both got our own identity sort of, or our own person is separate. We're not mingled up as a couple. So there's a lot more respect and trust.
Geez, you would think after, so what's 80s? What's that,
35 years.
35 years.
Yeah.
Do you think after 35 years, you would know all this stuff?
Well, people get to a point, like you were saying, somewhere in one of the podcasts, you'd said, like, are you surprised that everyone's not wanting to jump on board? And
Yeah.
I've read somewhere like 70% of people don't want to change.
Yeah.
They've got to the point where they're in the box.
Yeah.
And you've said, I think you and Peter might have said, oh, like society puts you in a box or something.
Yeah.
And I can really see for myself that stuff happened when I was little, and I just went, fuck, that's not safe. Like, for me to cope and manage how the world is, like, I don't cry and I don't get upset or get angry because it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
So for me to survive, I have to build this box around me. So I can really see I was doing that.
Yeah.
And then that Lotus opening, that was that changing.
Yeah, right. It's
So it's all a journey.
yeah, childhood trauma is it's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how old were you when, like, when you're saying childhood, what's childhood mean to you?
Oh, I remember a incident when I was like 5 or something, maybe just starting school.
Yeah, so between 0 and 7.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then something like there's a body memory at 6 weeks. of like, was I going to die or would I survive?
Yeah, it's
And both those incidents were with a grandfather, and sort of led me to not feel comfortable being a man, or like men do horrible things, all that. So I had a lot of the box around me was sort of like that.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah,
And I knew I wasn't a woman. It's not like I wanted that, but like men just do horrible things,
I think
which is a lot of it's in that protect, and like men go to war and do stuff like that. But then there's other transgressions as well.
yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because women do just as brutal things too. Like it's not. I think it's
Oh
depend.
yeah, I know.
I think it's depends on what happened to you in your childhood. You know,
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
get a thing against the men or against the women,
and
I
it's
think
and it's my point of view. It's just
yeah,
that's my experience and take.
yeah, and this is why because you don't like raising children. Like you have no idea. Like you're generally young. Like we're only in our 20s. Like we're
Yeah,
still growing. We're only kids.
yeah.
And so then we're bringing up children, like, and we don't know ourselves, you know? So
That's the,
it's
that's the
like,
most important thing for society, isn't it?
yeah. And then,
How come there's no bloody license for it? A
well, there
certificate,
should be some sort of,
a ticket.
yeah, but I hate the ticket system. There should
Yeah,
be some sort of, well, the thing is, I suppose you just look at how you were raised. This is the problem, I think. And then if you had a traumatic experience, and then that sort of just keeps rolling through all the generations. It's funny that very rarely do I speak to somebody that didn't have some sort of trauma in their childhood.
mm,
Like it's so rare. And I can, even for me, like bringing up my kids, because like I work so hard and 6 days a week, I wasn't really home a lot. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time with the kids that I should have. And because I didn't, and then plus my childhood was very traumatic as well. And so I was sort of thinking that I uh, wanted more time for myself as well. And then when I lost my grandfather at 35, and then he said what he said about not experiencing the life that he wanted. Um, so it's sort of, you start to think about yourself a lot, but you don't realize as a parent, you don't realize the effects on the children.
mm,
Yeah, it's like, it's, but you don't know until later, like till your kids are older, like in their 20s or, late teens, 20s, that the damage that you may have caused for your misparenting,
yeah.
And yeah, because I know
And,
that I've had a few issues because of and I know it's all my doing, and but
and
you
there's
can't
but
take
there's
it back.
this no, but you can recover and heal and improve,
Yeah,
and a lot of that is in just in truths, getting to the truth, not with your defensive story. I
yeah,
had to do this because blah blah blah. Yeah,
yeah, and that's another difficult one, isn't it? Because we all like to use we all
so,
we all like to use that.
yeah. And I've started looking into is it the school
Yeah,
platform you've got?
yeah,
And is that a bit like Facebook?
yeah,
How
yep.
it works? Yeah. Well, at the moment I'm reading a book, Why Won't You Apologize?
All right, yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
to put that up in the community.
Yeah, and I reckon it's really good. Like people put the book or whatever, and then just a little few dot points on the key takeouts they've got.
Yeah,
What things have really stood out to them.
yeah.
And
Well,
with
that's
that's a bit that example, like what stood out to me and what does it say about me?
yeah,
What did I get from this book? What did I learn?
yeah. Well, that's what getting onto that off this subject from it just into the book side of it. That's our idea with the book club that Rachel's looking after is for someone to put their book up and to have a review of it.
Yeah,
So then we can say, so that if you want that gives you an idea if you want to read the book or not, because there's so many good books
Oh,
out there that can help people.
so many ideas and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
Hey, Troy, I got a question for you then.
yeah.
What's like some of the things that have been real highlights of having children? Like
Oh, highlights.
moments, or I can tell you
All
one of
right.
mine.
All right. Let's hear one of yours first.
Okay, well, so we've got these horses, and we got a horse for my daughter. She's 8 years younger than our son. And she was, I don't know, 7 or something, and we got it said, anyway, so at the end of the day, you've got to go put rugs on and give them a feed and stuff. It was a really cold night, and she was like, I don't know, 8 or something. And there's a long race with trees and then paddocks on either side, and it had gotten dark, like you just still see your feet, and the moon was up and the stars were out, and she's holding my hand and skipping along next to me, and it was just like bliss, just like so happy. She was so happy, fed the horse, done all that stuff, and then we're on our way home. It's like
Yeah, wow.
starry. Just like a little magic moment.
That is a magic. And do they remember it? Like, did she ever say anything about it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Because those memories last forever, don't they?
yeah. And she's stuck in a big city now. She's been there for a year after being in Canberra, which is pretty open,
Yeah.
in this house for like 24 years, 23 years. And she's just come back because she misses camp, misses those memories, I guess. She's been out to see the horse and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then back to the city.
Back to the city. Yeah, I was yeah, yeah, I don't know. There's so many there's so many things I think about that a lot of times I think of all the things that I did wrong. This is like
Well,
I don't really think about all the things that I did do that were good. I think all the
well,
things that
that's why I asked that question.
yeah.
It's
I'll
like
tell you one thing,
that's good for our thinking.
two things that I did that I took my son Mitch on his 21st to Hawaii for a week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that was like and with my mate Craig as well. And that was like magical. And then I took my Sarah to
So that was a bit of a boys' trip.
yeah, boys trip, yeah. And then I took Sarah to New Zealand for her 21st and we're there for a week doing we did it because she's a thrill seeker like me.
Right.
So we did all the bungee and all the things and
And just you and her.
just me and her, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And then I was meant to do it with Sean, but COVID hit. And then so I haven't given him his 21st present yet.
Oh,
But it'll come. But that's something that for me that I'll remember forever.
yeah.
But
With with that week with her, because I think I might have met her. What was the like? Was there one thing where you just had like you looked at each other or something, just as you're about to bungee or something like that? That's like,
yeah, well, we did everything together. We're on the big swing, and we're on that together.
yeah,
But I'll tell you something. Yeah, one of the funniest things was that we both laugh about because I recorded it was we had these quad bikes, and she she was trying to do wheel spins or something, and I was recording it, and then we often have a look at it and we laugh,
yeah.
and think about things, and then yeah,
Well,
that was But I wish if I could go back, which I mean you can't, but if I could go back, I think I would have appreciated the time more with them, growing up.
yeah,
I probably would have spent, especially more time with my sons, just because, mm, yeah, I feel that I was so busy trying to provide,
mm,
like, we'll survive really,
yeah.
because it's like it was tough, it's still hard, but uh, that's a if I was if I could give something to a young parent, that's what I would cherish, like you just said with that skipping incident
Yeah,
with a young girl. Well, I mean, you should be able to have 100 of those.
yeah.
There should be heaps of them, but
Well, if I was a young parent, it'd be like weekly meetings leading up to, with like just really working out how it's all going to be. There's a new person come in, you're responsible, you got all your shit to work out. How's it, like, what are some ground rules, or what's a good way to, when you get to a sticking point and everything's unmanageable, to then be able to process and move forward in some sort of harmony.
Yeah. And it's
So
such a big thing, isn't it?
yeah, we had a lot of arguments, and every time there was a big blow up, our son, like toddler, would get an ear infection. Didn't want to hear.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, so it's a big impact on like everyone's health, but his health.
Yeah. And because and everyone's got their own journey in their own mind, you know?
Yeah,
And so everyone sees life differently because the whole reality is only in your head. And
yeah,
it's we put our realities onto everybody else, you know? So we don't really realize that we think everyone should think like us, you know? Like I think everyone should think like me. But obviously that's not the case, you know? You can't, that's impossible because only I can think like me.
I had someone recently say to me, I was doing a session with them as a client, and she said, "It might come as a surprise to you, Tim, but other people might have their own minds."
Yeah.
It's like, God, what a foreign concept. I thought if it was in my head, then the whole world knew or could see or whatever. It's funny. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So it's now a laughing sort of point with my wife and I. Like, yeah, okay,
yeah. That's because everybody thinks like that though, because we think that everything should go the way that we see that it should go. And we can't it's so hard for ourselves to understand their point of view, even though we accept their point of view, but it's hard to see their point of view,
yeah,
you know, even though we
and
see it, but yeah,
and accept that it's the same thing but a different point of view.
yeah,
So it's actually a different thing.
they're totally different. Yeah. But getting back to the roles and responsibilities, I think like two young parents, like even two young people getting together and getting married, even that's big, you know, roles and responsibility. Like what are the real, no one talks about it.
Yeah,
It's just a weird thing. Like you just go, oh, we'll get married. Yeah, right. Okay. So then we start living together. Yeah, right. Just keep working. Everything just keeps going. And you look at all the things that aren't going right and things are going wrong. And, you know, I bet if there was a clear way, everyone should have to go and do something. I think like some sort of, before the marriage happens, go and have a workshop
yeah,
or not a workshop. A workshop's probably not a wording, but some sort of retreat or something maybe.
yeah. Some sort of introspective sort of process.
Yeah, and say, well, this is all the things that are going to come up. Like, so
What
how are you going to deal with it?
what are you going to do when this happens?
Yeah, and that's going to happen, like without a doubt. You know, it's
Yeah, even just a baby crying, like the mother's got such a strong response to that, or can have. Um, yeah, so that's actually something that doesn't get talked much about in psychology or other sort of modalities, but instincts are really important
yeah,
in growing up.
yeah. It's yeah.
And
We never.
you and I are sort of at a stage more. I mean, yeah, and there's like an instinct to sort of be like have some wisdom and share knowledge or learnings. And maybe in your 20s, you've got an instinct to get out and see the world. And sort of maybe 30s, a bit more of an instinct to find a home and a nest. So think about children or not. But there's different stages of life,
Yeah,
different things draw you.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's right. And if there was some sort of playbook,
But yeah, as a new parent with like new baby, they're crying. Like my upbringing was they have to learn to cry. And
yeah,
my wife's like, no, like it's crying. It needs there's something it needs. It doesn't cry unless there's pain or it hasn't learned to use that as a manipulation. it's in distress, so it needs to be held and
nurtured.
try and ease the discomfort.
But I mean, we do learn very fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do they learn that quick? You know, from a tiny little kid to say, right, if I start crying, I'm going to get this attention.
Over weeks, but not in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, not when you first get it.
Our son cried for 3 months or something, but he would have had. Looking now, he would have had a freaking headache. He needed Panadol.
Yeah, rightio. Was he? Yeah, because it could be a nutrition thing.
Oh, it was just a really difficult birth. Like they both nearly died.
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
traumatic entry to the world.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that makes a difference too, doesn't it?
Mm. Yeah, so he had a headache.
And do you think that so your wife must have been pretty traumatized by that as well? So do you think her traumatized energies like getting passed over to him?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of anything like that. Like we're still working on that because in a way I had a hand in that. Like what's my book? Why won't you say sorry? Why won't you apologise?
Oh, right.
So I was there at a home birth, and the midwife recommended like trying to stay home for another few hours, and Linda was saying, "I want to go to hospital," and we did what the midwife said.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I didn't do that thing where you said of standing up and protecting.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't
my
it?
background is like she's the authority. We were paying her. She knows.
Mm.
Whereas what all the home birth people say is the mother knows. If the mother says something, you do it.
If there's something wrong.
Yeah. Like the mother knows that innately.
This is why I don't like home births.
Us too.
Yeah. No, because I think it all feels good.
That's a bit of a minefield, sort of even sharing that story, but it's like it's the truth.
And it's a bit like it's one of those feel good things. Like I think, oh, it'd be great, have the home birth and everything. But that's all great if everything goes good.
Yeah.
But it can go south so quick.
Well, yeah, we know.
And then you've got to try and get to the hospital. This is where I think the sick care system is good.
And at that point with the midwife, I didn't know because I'd never been into hospital before. I made us go in and do the tour, so we're familiar. But I didn't know that, say it's 10 p.m. and you go in and the wards are all shut down, theatre and stuff, that it takes hours to get the anaesthetist in and the obstetrician in and stuff might have to happen before that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that's carried on from all that time ago, 34 years.
Yeah, there's still sort of unpacking and
yeah, because time's not real, is it?
And healing.
Yeah, like time.
A hurt is a hurt.
Yeah, it lasts forever.
Yeah,
yeah.
Or you recover, you go.
Yeah, or you got to accept it and let it go.
Work in and heal from it.
Yeah, yeah. That's the only way that you can let that. You got to just accept that happened at the time, and we can't change it, and then we have to let it go. That's the only way around all these things like that. Because as much as we'd like to change, just like me going back, with my kids, like you can't. Like time's gone. Like the time's time.
Yeah.
So you just have to accept where you're at and go, okay, we have to let that go, and then what can we do moving forward?
Yeah. What now? How can it be better?
Yeah. That's the only way around that. But yeah, for a young father, I would try and spend a bit, even an hour or so, quality time, with the kids at night, or because you know what, you get home, you're so tired because you've been working long days, and you're so tired, and maybe when they're younger too, that they're up at night or someone's up, or you're not getting enough sleep, and you get cranky.
Yeah.
And then you probably got all stress, and because mum's probably stressed because she's trying to get everything together, and now that she's working as well, so she's working, then everyone's trying to do the same job because there's no roles and responsibilities. And I think, yeah, it just leads to chaos.
Yeah. Well, it's full on, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's where if you're a grandparent, or we had grandparents, like both of our parents were around, they were really supportive. But that's what we can do now.
Yeah.
Lyndall and I can step into that, ease some of that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my
Situation arises when we have
yeah.
grandchildren.
Well, my grandparents, which are my kids' great grandparents, that they were the ones that looked after our kids, you know. And then Kerry's mum, because her dad had a cerebral hemorrhage and he was blind, so she was looking after him for all these years.
Yeah.
But so she used to look after Sean a lot because when she moved up from Sydney to the Central Coast. But yeah, if it's that'd be my words of wisdom for if there's any young people out there listening to this, probably to do some sort of course or parenting, or speak to older people and try and get all. There's no solution because every child's different, you know. So you've got to work out who the child is and how they react to things and all that. But I think the roles and responsibilities thing, I have a discussion, like you said, because I didn't have it. We never had any discussion to say what's the disciplinary action. You know, if a child does this, how do we see it? Do we give them the spoon, or or do we just put them outside, or do we what do you do? You know, and then
management plan.
Yeah, the management plan and homework and all these things. Like it's just like, I'm too tired, you do it. I'm too tired, you do it. And that ends up an argument, you know? And so then you end up arguing the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
Sorry, kids.
Yeah, so it's going to be it's a definite journey. And but it's always growing. It's just like you said before, it's a plant. We're just a plant and we keep growing. But you've got to chop a bit off to get more growth, you know? That's the thing.
Leave behind what you don't want and go with the new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like your idea with your 3 steps, and I don't know if that would quite work with us, but
well, it's a practice and it's discipline.
Yeah,
it's good internally.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'm not sure how it would go.
That's another form of exercise.
Yeah, I would. I suppose I could run it by Kerry, but I don't know how it would work. It might end up a yelling match.
Well, you definitely need to do a bit of training.
Yeah. I would definitely need some training. But yeah. Anyway, well, awesome. Thanks, Tim, for coming and sharing some words of wisdom, and discussing a few things for the men.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of ladies on, because it's all about healing, and ladies are the main healers. They're the main ones. So, but I need to get more men on that to talk about men discussions too, because we need both sides. We need both the male and the female energies. Yeah. So thanks very much. And if someone wanted to get in contact with you, would you have anything where they could go and contact you? Or
well, probably through the school.
Okay, over on over in the community.
Yeah, my business has got a web page, but it's just horticulture stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you go to troycoleman.com and then click the free link to the community, this is Tim and I hang out there, and yeah, because we're all about, the community's about growing, and we've got challenges and things there to try and get all our health in check. Because if you're not healthy, then everything falls apart. So it's the number one first thing is get your mind and body in health, and then once that's cracking, and then everything else will just start to go good. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Tim, and thanks for your time, mate. And we'll see you later.
Keep up the good work.